Okay.
At this point, looking back at it, I was like, yeah.
It's kind of strange. So, what is the relationship like right now with your dad? Do you communicate with him? Have you guys men that brokenness or that distant that you guys patch up anything and communicate?
I mean, your parents is your parents, regardless of how it starts. Your parents is your parents. The Bible has taught us to honor our parents, and yes, I have. I do respect him. Um, I just I don't live in the same country as he does, but I do visit him from time to time. Um, we don't have the strongest relationship, but we do have somewhat of a
Mm.
relationship.
And we should. For everyone that's watching, I've always said this. Sometimes as kids, children of parents, um, things happen, and we don't know what transpired or what caused someone to do certain things. Not everyone is built for pressure. Not everyone is built for responsibility. Not everyone will step up to the board or to the bat and say, I am going to be in this column. Sometimes it could be disagreements between the mother and the father, and they just realize that they don't see eye to eye, and somebody leave. It could be anything. However, if that individual is still alive and you're still alive, I urge everyone to seek forgiveness, to seek a place where you can put aside the difference of what hatred and any kind of ill feelings would bring and mend that relationship. If it's if it's that your mom had stepped away from your relation from your life and you then meet your mom, mend that relationship. If it's your dad that has stepped away from your life, find that person, mend that relationship. It's not going to be as every other relationship is, but at least have some form of communication with the individual where you could reach out and say, hi, how are you? Is everything all right? Just being cordial with that individual is good enough to start building that bridge. And I urge everyone to do that because I feel like if we have more of that, then we'll have more of this disparity of people just feeling like, I don't want to deal and I don't want to deal, and they just go apart, you know? So that's just my view on that. But back to you, Mama Sanaya. So now let's go into your mid-teens life because now 13 you're taking on this journey. Now you're going to start growing into being mid-teen. You made mention just now that you and your dad do not live in same country. So I am assuming that where you're living now is not where you were born.
Correct.
So you had migrated from one island to somewhere else. So please explain to us what made that transition and how did that come about?
So at the age of 16, I migrated with a
Can you
family.
repeat your phone just break out just now? The age of what?
At the age of 16, I migrated
16.
with a
Okay.
yeah, I migrated with a family member, and I lived with that family member for a short while. And
Hmm.
then again, at the age of 16, that family member left and went and traveled. She migrated for some time. With her migrating, again, I was left alone. Um,
Again, for my viewers, because I could have hardly heard it, just said he or she.
she,
She. Okay.
right, so she migrated and
Hmm.
I was left in her home.
Mm-hmm.
alone. So, I mean, everything was taken care of, but it's just that I was left to at 16 to deal with me.
Once
Um,
again.
yeah. But because I was so accustomed of, being independent and doing things on my own, although the loneliness crept in, I was able to manage myself pretty well.
So you're now thrown into the wolf at 16 again. Once at 13, 3 years later, you are now sent back out to the wolf. 16, you're a little bit older than what you were at 13. So comprehending things may be a little bit different. Your body may kind of subjectively put you in a different space. What was it like now getting left at 16 years old in a house by yourself, no sister anymore, no one else around you? Now you're definitely on your own and has to be the whole caretaker of yourself. What was that like?
At first, it was nerve-wracking because I was never totally alone. So at first, it was nerve-wracking, but as time passed, I became accustomed to relying on me. Um, with that being my new norm, um, certain changes came. I had to make certain changes. You would find that a young lady being on her own would be distracted with, you know, probably a boyfriend. Those kind of things, those kind of things would creep in. Um, and because there was some loneliness at 16, I did get involved in, you know, you know, my first sexual encounter was at 16. So
Mm,
that that came pretty early for me, looking back at it.
mhm.
But sometimes it is what it is.
Well, it's hard. And when I say it's hard because once again, 16 years old is not an age where typically everyone has been left on their own. And of course, you give a young mind at 16 years old the freedom to explore their inner feelings because at 16 years old is at the point where all of these hormones are they're not no longer raging, they're kicking. So given this the space that you were given to be by yourself, there's no one there directing, cutting, watching your time when you go out, how you come in, what you do, what you wear. You're left with that freedom. And an untrained mind is just only going to answer themselves. So if their mind say, let's try this, they're gonna try. Because who's gonna be there to stop them from trying? Not that I am saying that all 16-year-old should I, if you're left at 16-year-old, I hope if you're watching this, this would be an educational lesson for you to say that there are ways, be aware that the mind and hormones will play games and trick with you. And you don't have to succumb to it. Find yourself someone outside of a boyfriend that you can tell your feelings to, which is more of an elder, and ask them to educate you how to control that feeling so you may best make best decision for yourself going forward. However, given the fact that that had happened to you, no fault of your own, because again, young mind left alone. So you had to do what you had to do, and things happen. Would you say to yourself that this happening at an early stage in your life Had it shape you to be more mindful? Or did it just put you on a track to say, well, hey, I'm here, I'm just going to keep doing what I do and I'll figure it out while I go forward?
Well, after that first encounter, to me at that time, it was so overrated.
Mm,
Um, for me, it wasn't what everybody used to talk about. It was just so overrated. And after that first encounter, I did not get involved with anyone or I didn't have any other sexual activity for a very long time because it was just, okay, what is this? Um, so at that time, there was nothing enjoyable about it. There was nothing good about it. So it was just a waste of my time. However, moving um, from that, um, there was a church nearby. I decided to go to church after that. Maybe a couple of months after, I decided to go to church after that. And then the teachings of my grandma from a very young age, I never I was never too far away from it. So going back to church was okay, that's something I'm familiar with. That's something that I can relate to. Let me feel, let me go back there. And going back to church, I started to feel as if I was a part of something I belonged. So I started to go to church
mm,
again. Yeah.
nice. So out of that encounter came something good. You found back your spirituality, finding that what you think was supposed to be this exciting, thing was just turned out to be like wah, wah, nothing that to write home about. And it led you to go to church. Now, not everyone takes that path. That's one of the most least trad part that people does. However, good to see that you find that part. So now going to church at 16 years old and still have your freedom, what, if anything, did you gather from being in church? And how did finding church again shape you mentally to cope with what you had going on around
Well, church helped me to cope a lot with the loneliness and somewhat to fill the void because I was adopted into a church family. And
you?
with that, as I said before, I felt as if I belonged to something, as if people cared about me and I was welcomed. So I felt as if, yeah, there was at least this life again.
Mm-hmm.
So with that newfound or new refreshed way of living, I never gave up on church. I just continued to go and um, uh, well, I went for a while, and then that's where the other chapter of my life began.
Wow. So yes. So church gave you a sense of family once again
Right.
because you had people there. And I sense that where this new chapter is coming from, that while being at church, I don't know, I'm trying to play my lead in here. While being at church, you got into an encounter. You probably meet a young man, saw somebody liked you, and that void that you were looking to be filled, you started to get filled by this person.
Right. So,
I'm trying to pick your brain. So tell me, I tell the audience, my viewers, what transpired at that point, what made that change? That new chapter you're
so
talking about.
right. So at the age of, I think it was 18 or 19, I met my then boyfriend.